Hello, welcome to Travel Talks. My name is Kate Sanders. I'm the Director of Alumni Group Travel and Academic Enrichment at the OSU Alumni Association. Our online Travel Talks program invites experts from across the university, as well as our friends, and to learn about places we travel. Please save the date for a few upcoming talks. On May 6th, we have the Aurora Borealis and the solar eclipse with Laura Edson. She's a project manager for NASA's Aurorasaurus Citizen Science Project, and she will teach us all about the auroras and solar activity. And in late May, we have just added, we're going to do a preview on our Smoky Mountains tour and the Montreal and Quebec trip. So stay tuned for that. We'll announce the date on the events calendar, as well as the travel newsletter and our website. So that'll be coming up in late May. And you can register for all these talks right on our website. And upcoming, I have a couple events I wanted to share with you all. For those that are in Oregon, we are going to be in Salem tomorrow. Tomorrow is OSU Day at the Capitol, big day, and we're going to be doing an event called Damn Good Connections in Salem at the Willamette Heritage Center. So if you're in the area, we will be there from 5 to 7. So come and join us. You can register for that on our website for oregonstate.org/events. And then we will also be up in Bend on April 10th. And I wanted to share because the Hatfield Marine Science Center is a big partner of the Alumni Association and, of course, one of the university's campuses. And they're doing their Hatfield Marine Science Day on April 12th. And if you've ever been, you'll know how wonderful it is. And if you haven't, you'll want to check it out. They have dock tours and exhibits and all kinds of wonderful learning activities. So it's a great event for the whole family. So you want to check that out down in Newport on April 12th. And then I always love to share just a little bit about our tours that we have going on. So this Smoky Mountains trip is one that we'll be talking about in the preview coming up in May. It's where we did this trip specifically to pair it with the OSU versus Appalachian State football game. So if you're going to head down to Boone, North Carolina in October for the game, might want to consider adding a few days beforehand and see the area. And then also, and we're going to Africa this summer. So if you've ever wanted to go, this is a very popular classic safari trip in Africa. And then we're headed to Italy as well in September. So this trip we've offered for the last couple years and folks have loved it. It's a wonderful overview tour of Italy. You get to see and do a lot. So consider traveling to Italy in September. And the last trip I want to talk about is this Greco-Romans Echoes cruise. It's a trip to Greece, Italy, France, and Monaco. So if cruising is your thing, this is a fun one to try. And of course, all of our tours are online at fororegonstate.org/travel. Now, that all the commercials are over, it's time to talk about Ireland. And for those of you that are on our Coastal Gems of Emerald Isle tour, as well as the Celtic Classics England Ireland cruise in August, you'll notice that this talk that Elizabeth is going to do with us is going to talk about some of those spots on your trips. Or if you become very interested and want to get out to Ireland this year, we still do have a couple spaces left on these tours. So think about it as we go along. So today joining us is Elizabeth Bell. She's an Ireland native, an OSU alumnus, and a travel of ours. She's been on a few of OSU's tours. Elizabeth grew up in Northern Ireland, attended the University of Nottingham, England, lived in Edinburgh, Scotland, and that was all before she landed here in Corvallis. She earned her second degree in accounting at OSU and was a healthcare administrator at the Corvallis Clinic, and now tours the world in her retirement and has an absolutely wonderful time with her husband, Chris. So every year, Elizabeth returns to Ireland, still discovering new things she has never seen before. And today she's going to share with us some of her favorites. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Kate, I can't see myself, so I'm going to assume that, oh, there I am.
There you are.
Okay, well, let me share my my PowerPoint with you. And as I do this, I want to thank you all for letting me talk to you about my favorite subject, the country that I came from. Okay, So, yes, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to talk to you about my country. I am indeed very proud of my homeland for its beauty, its culture, music, art, literature, and dance. And now, in case you hadn't noticed, we're becoming quite a powerhouse in the film industry. And I prepared a list, which I've given to Kate, of some books, art, TV shows, and movies that you might want to consider delving into before your trip. But of course, one of the best things about Ireland is the people. As you travel and meet and greet them, you will undoubtedly wonder how we have managed to spend thousands of years killing each other. We are such fun, lovable, creative people, and yet we have such a violent and dark history. My theory about this is that we suffer from two forces. One of them is colonialism, and the other is the church, both the Anglican and the Roman Catholic Church. Tonight, I will share with you the information that I've shared with friends from England and America and with my 18-year-old grandson, who I took to Ireland last summer to experience his heritage. But first, let's look at a map of Ireland. You can see that the island of Ireland is in fact two countries. Northern Ireland, sometimes called Ulster, sometimes called the North, belongs to the United Kingdom and is governed by the British in London, and more recently by a devolved government in Stormont in Belfast. The south of Ireland, often known as the Republic of Ireland, ERA, the Free State, the South, is an independent country with its own government. It is part of Europe, while we in the North, thanks to Brexit, are not. And the Republic has become one of the most progressive countries in Europe. When I left Ireland in the late 70s, divorce, contraception, abortion, and same gender relationships were all illegal. Not so today. In both countries, we drive on the same side of the road, which is the wrong side of the road for you, and in the north, we use miles and miles per hour. And in the south, you'll be using kilometers and kilometers per hour. In the north, you'll use pounds for currency. And you will see English pounds and Northern Irish pounds from several different banks. So be prepared for the fact that money is all going to look different every day. You may even see a Scottish £5 note floating around. And of course, in the south, you'll be using Irish euros, but you'll come across some Italian ones and French ones, and you can use those anywhere in Europe. So why did I leave? Well, imagine preparing to go to college in Northern Ireland in 1968. The first civil rights riot was in the town that I lived in September 1968, this little town here called Dungannon. Within weeks, that rioting had spread to other cities like Belfast, Newry down here on the border, and also Londonderry up in the north. I believe those are places that you will be going to see. Where we lived was called the Murder Triangle. It's that this area here of Portadown, Dungannon, and Armagh. That was the Murder Triangle. And on Monday mornings, the headmistress of our school would announce which girls would be out for the rest of the week because a family member had been caught in a bomb or assassinated. So it wasn't really a pleasant place to be to live in. Why do we have this troubled history? Best way to explain it is to show you a map of Europe. Look where Ireland is on the map of Europe. It has for a long time been considered the stepping stone to England by the French, the Spanish, anyone who had a beef with the English. After Henry VIII broke with Rome to marry Anne Boleyn, you'll remember, this became more important as the Catholic Church wanted to put a Catholic monarch back on the throne. And so you have a series of wars from the 15th century onwards, where Ireland was used by countries in Europe to raise an army of Catholic sympathizers and fight against England. The most famous of these for me is the Battle of the Boyne. This took place in 1690 between England, led by King William II, or William of Orange, you may have heard of him, and James II, who was actually the grandson of Mary, Queen of Scots. And he considered himself to be the rightful Catholic King of England. By the way, William was married to James's daughter, Mary, who was in fact William's cousin. James lost the battle, and this confirmed Protestant or Anglican hold on Ireland. Then for the next 400 years, what you have is future kings and queens of England dividing up Ireland as gifts for their noblemen and soldiers. My brother, for example, has his property is on this lake that you can see in the north, and it was deeded to the Earl of Charlemont, who fought with the Duke of Wellington in the Napoleonic Wars. And so it was held by an Englishman for a long time before. And the house that my brother lived in is actually was built by the Duke of Charlemont. So you can see on this map how little of Ireland was actually owned by the Irish. The Irish farmed the land and gave the produce to the English, paid rent and taxes. They lived off potatoes. And so when the potato blight happened in the 19th century, millions died or emigrated to avoid the famine. 400 years of hostility between nationalists who wanted Ireland to be independent and unionists, we still use those terms, who wanted to stay with England, culminated in 1921 when the country was officially separated. There were many rebellions between 1690 and 1921. The 1916 rebellion, otherwise known as the Easter Rebellion, was the last straw for the English, and it was precipitated them giving up the south of Ireland. The rebellion was actually a failure on the part of the Irish, and the leaders of the rebellion were executed at Kilmainham Jail, which is one of the things one of the places I would recommend that you go and visit sometime. The rebellion was a failure, but it was a public relations nightmare for the English, who were already at war with Germany on the continent. And so they decided to give up on the Irish, and the country was divided, and the English kept the north, and the Irish became an independent state. However, this is what I grew up with. Rumblings in the north, which remained British, continued from 1921 until the riots, which I talked about in 1968, the beginning of what we call the Troubles. And we had over 30 years of bombings, assassinations, and riots. It was a very violent conflict fought in the streets of Northern Ireland. You will have heard terms such as Bloody Sunday, the Disappeared, and all the paramilitary organizations such as the IRA, the UDA, the UVF, the UDR. I often get asked, how safe is Northern Ireland? And I say perfectly safe for tourists. That is not to say that the IRA and the UVF and the other terrorist groups no longer exist. Unfortunately, they do. But there's been enormous progress in the years since the 2003 peace agreement. So essentially, we've had peace for about 22 years. But let's go back to the more interesting and ancient history of Ireland. We have a wonderful ancient history, which you will see as you travel around in the form of castles, stone circles, and what we call dolmens. These pictures here are from County Tyrone, where I grew up, County Down, and the one in the top left-hand corner is a very famous one called the Hill of Tara. And these are stone circles. When I was a child, we always called them fairy circles because we believed that the fairies left the stones. On the right, you have a fort, an old fort. It was built in the 16th century. It's called the Granier de Aliac. And you will see a lot of these forts in this format. But my favorite dolmen is, of course, Pulnabron. And I believe you will be visiting Pulnabron. I won't share its story, as your guide will have to do that for you. It was very hard to find Poulnabrone up until about 10 years ago when they improved the road to the area. And I think that was really unfortunate. So when you're there, check out the gentleman on the right selling jewelry in the parking lot. He has told me twice now that he's retiring, but I've always been able to count on him when I go to take a look at Poulnabrone. His name is Tomas, and he is a druid, a priest of the Celtic religion. Come prepared to buy his jewelry, which is a real treasure and not at all expensive. He can create amulets for you he will use the Druid alphabet to carve out your name on a piece of slate or silver. So a real special person, and it will tell you wonderful stories. A few of my favorite castles. Top left-hand corner is Ashford Castle, well known for a lot of celebrities who've had their weddings there. It also serves a wonderful afternoon tea, and you can spend an overnight there if you ever want to be in this area. The next one to the right is Blarney, where of course you must go and kiss the Blarney Stone so that you can talk almost as much as I do. To the right is Powers Court, which strictly speaking is not a castle. It's what we call a stately home, but it's very accessible from Dublin. And you could even get an Uber out here for the afternoon. And the gardens and the lakes are really spectacular. Down in the right-hand corner is Bunratty, another favorite of mine. I took my grandson here last year. Twice a day, they do a wonderful medieval feast. The food is extraordinarily good. The music is wonderful, and they have characters dressed in medieval Irish costume, and they will sing and play harps, and generally, it's a wonderful piece of entertainment, so I highly recommend it. On the bottom in the middle is Cashel, one of my favorite castles. It's actually a castle plus a cathedral, and you can probably just spot there that there's a graveyard. This is just magical to walk around. Again, another place where there's a lovely little village that you can walk around, and very special. Down in the bottom left-hand corner, I just thought you might like to see a fixer-upper. You can still find castles to fix up in Ireland. This one was on the market in 2019. Unfortunately, I haven't been back to see what anybody did with it. But you should, of course, understand that when you buy a castle like this, you're really just buying a piece of land, and it's probably going to cost you a lot of money to fix up a castle. But you can still do this, so watch out for the fixer-uppers. Some other things that you should watch out for as you're driving along. Thatch cottages. I love thatch cottages. This one looks just like my granny's cottage, but she actually had an aluminium roof, and I was always dreadfully disappointed that she didn't have a thatch cottage. The middle picture you'll probably recognize is actually John Wayne and Maureen O'Hara. This is in the village of Pong, where they filmed The Quiet Man, which is quite a famous American movie. I think it was on quite recently, actually, around St. Patrick's Day. On the right, something you'll see regularly out your coach windows. These are archaeologists because there's still a lot to discover about Ireland. And these gentlemen were working in this field in 2021. And when I went back last year, they had actually unearthed another fort. They'd only gotten about 2 feet of walls, but it was very exciting. They'd also uncovered some weapons and some skulls. I love the stone walls. They are intriguing that they are such beautiful stone, and despite the harsh weather and the sheep jumping over them, they never seem to fall down. They're really terrific. So watch out for the stone walls. And the other picture here is that wonderful afternoon tea at Ashford Castle, but you will be able to find beautiful afternoon teas all over Ireland. Some of you are going out to the Aran Islands. That is one of my favorite trips. I do it on a regular basis. I took my grandson, that's him sound asleep on the boat coming back, having just been thoroughly ill. So I just had to post this here because I wanted to warn you, especially if you take the boat that goes around the Cliffs of Moher. It's fantastic views of the Cliffs of Moher, and then it takes you out to the island. It can be a very rough crossing. This was in August, and the wind was particularly bad, and so you can even see the gentleman beside my grandson is looking pretty worse for wear. So you might want to take some, I think it's Dramamine. You might want to take something before you get on that boat. But if it's a calm day, don't worry about it. It'll be delightful. And if you're going to the first island, it only takes about 25 minutes. Another spectacular thing I recommend to people is you'll see horses everywhere. These horses that I have here are very special. They're from the National Stud Farm. Again, very accessible from Dublin. It's near the famous race course called the Curragh. And here, what you'll experience is you can actually walk around beautiful gardens and you can see the stables where the famous retired racehorses are kept in luxurious conditions because they are used to service mayors from all over the world. And some of these stallions will cost $250,000 for a service. The mares are typically kept at the stud farm, and they have their babies there, usually around January or February. So when you come in the summer, there's just a huge crop of beautiful little foals. You can see this one suckling on his mother. And it's an absolute treasure to go to the National Stud Farm and see the wonderful Irish horses that we have. On the right, I hope you can see, I think my face might be blocking this, but this is again, another favorite of mine. It's a place called Glendalough. And again, very accessible from Dublin. You could take an Uber right there. This was an area where the monks would leave Dublin to come out here to get away from the Vikings. And you can see that the tower has a door in it about 20 feet off the ground. And the idea was that they would run up a ladder inside the tower all the way to the top. There are platforms, and they would sit in there with their Bibles and their things from their churches, and they would be protected from the Vikings. If the Vikings came along, they had to come up the ladder one at a time and be bopped on the head, maybe with a very nice silver candlestick. So again, another magical place. Take a tour guide because the tour guides in Ireland tell the best stories. You'll really love that. Um, Also, here we have a Celtic cross. You'll see the Celtic cross on a lot of artifacts like jewelry and so on. Even the poorest people in Ireland will have a Celtic cross on their grave. And of course, my favorite, the Irish wolfhound. I would love to have one of these, but I don't think my husband would ever let me. And they do cost a lot of money to feed. So watch out for the flowers. We have the best wildflowers. Hydrangeas grow wild in the hedges. In the burren, you can see the burren has a sort of moon-like landscape. And in between those rocks, you will find these beautiful little flowers. These yellow ones are gorse, and then there are some bluebells. Also, what you will see is we have hedges and hedges of wild fuchsia. I didn't know that fuchsia was an ornamental plant until I came to this country and saw them in hanging baskets because I grew up with fuchsias growing in the hedges. This is a little lily. Different people call it different things, but they grow again in the hedges. And on the right, we have Scarlet Pimpernel, which I think is just delightful. This one is in the Powers Court Garden, which I highly recommend. Dublin recommendations. Well, it might sound terribly corny, but I really recommend the hop on, hop off bus. Um, it truly is a really great way to see all of Dublin. Kilmainham Jail, where the rebels from the 1916 rebellion were executed. One of the most famous is a woman called Countess Markovich. She actually had her own troop that she led, and she was arrested after a rebellion and thrown into Kilmainham jail. And the English came to her and said, Countess Markovich, we are not going to shoot you because you're a woman. And Countess Markovich said, no way, you are going to shoot me. I want to be shot. I do not want to be treated differently from the men who led the rebellion. But she wasn't shot, and she actually lived to a very good age. She didn't pass away until the 60s. I think she was about 90 years old at the time. Glasnevin Cemetery. I highly recommend this. It is like a history book of Ireland. What you will be doing is you'll be walking past all the graves of all the most famous people in Irish history: O'Connell, Parnell, Michael Collins. They're all buried in Glasnevin Cemetery. St. Michelin's, strange thing happened. I was going to recommend this to you because it's a crypt where you can go and see the graves of basically mummified bodies. One of which is a crusader who was brought back from the Middle East during the Crusades, and they know he's a crusader because the way that they transported crusaders was that they would break their legs and cross them over their chests so that they would fit in their coffins. There was also someone in there who, when they opened the coffin, there were scratches on the lid of the coffin because he'd been buried alive and tried to get out. So again, great stories. This is where you will find all the great stories about Ireland. Unfortunately, St. Michelin's last week suffered a fire, and so it won't be open while you're there, but I thought it was worth telling you some of the stories. The Guinness Storehouse, not my favorite thing. To me, it's like a Disneyland experience. My grandson loved it because he got to pour a pint of Guinness, and of course, he's 18 and he thought it was wonderful that he was allowed to drink it. Dublin Castle, well worth a trip, mostly to experience, first of all, Viking history, because the basement of the castle has a lot of artifacts from the Viking raids, but the higher levels will give you a really good understanding of the English being in Dublin. Trinity College, one of the oldest universities in the world, beautiful Georgian architecture, and of course, it's the home of the Book of Kells. The General Post Office, you can just do a walk by, although it does have a very nice museum. But I have a photograph here of the pillar, and if you walk down O'Connell Street, you'll see that the pillars have these holes in them. Those are bullet holes from the 1916 rebellion, and the Irish refused to patch them up because it's a mark of honor to them that there are bullet holes there. Also on the left, you'll see Sweet Molly Malone, the story of the young lady who sold cockles and mussels in Dublin. I just heard on the Irish Times podcast this week that the police have created a special force to guard Molly because, as you can see, um, tourists are very tempted to touch Molly, and people are getting very upset about it. And so we are going to try to stop people molesting poor Molly. Um, in Northern Ireland, I would not only recommend the hop on, hop off bus in Belfast, but also a black taxi tour. What you will find there is that you are being driven around by someone who possibly was a terrorist during the Troubles and hopefully is now behaving themselves. But they will give you a wonderful understanding and a wonderful tour of our history. Queen's University, another beautiful Victorian building. The Titanic Museum, as you know, the Titanic was built in Belfast, and it's a brilliant museum, state-of-the-art museum. However, I would say that I prefer the museums around Cork and Cobb down in the south of Ireland. That Cork was the last stop of the Titanic before it headed out onto the Atlantic, and a lot of the bodies were brought back to that area. And so they have actually, I think, better museums. But the Titanic Museum is a wonderful museum to understand the history of the period and also to see how the ship was built and, of course, where things went wrong. The Cathedral Quarter, brilliant pubs, great shopping. Stormont is our devolved government, also worth a guided tour. The Ulster Museum has artifacts from prehistoric times right through to the Troubles. And the City Hall, this is the City Hall in this picture, and you can see there's a very important lady on a statue right in front of it. It's Queen Victoria. And unfortunately, this building and this statue of Queen Victoria is a thorn in the side of nationalists because this is very much an emblem of British power in Northern Ireland. So it's quite a controversial subject, but it is a beautiful building. Of course, you'll have to go to the Giant's Causeway, the home of Finn McCool. We have a lot of giants in Ireland. You may not see them while you're there, just like you probably won't see fairies and leprechauns, but they are very important to our history. Finn McCool lived at the Giant's Causeway. The causeway goes all the way to Scotland. If any of you have visited Scotland, you'll know about Fingal's Cave. Fingal the Giant lived in his cave in Scotland, and he and Finn McCool frequently had arguments. And Finn McCool was quite wary of him, and he heard that Fingal was going to come over and pick a fight with him. His wife, smart Irish woman, she suggested that he build a crib that would be big enough for him to lie in. So Finn McCool got into the crib, she covered him over, and sure enough, Fingal came and said, "Where is your husband?" And she said, "Well, he's out for the day, but would you like to see our baby?" And so Fingal looked into the crib and saw Finn McCool and said, maybe I don't stand much of a chance here. And he headed off very quickly back to Fingal's cave, and it never was a problem again. This is also the area where a lot of Game of Thrones was filmed. Um, and you can take a tour of the Game of Thrones film sites. Carrick-a-Reed is a bridge between two cliffs, which, if you're brave enough, is fun to walk on. Armagh, one of the cities I grew up in, the home of two cathedrals, both called St. Patrick's. One is Catholic, one is Protestant. Downpatrick is where the grave of St. Patrick is. What always amuses me is when I go there on St. Patrick's Day, nobody's at the grave, everybody's in the pub. But a favorite thing to do is to leave daffodils on his grave because, of course, he wasn't an Irishman, he was Welsh. And the flower of Wales is the daffodil. Londonderry and Glens of Antrim, and of course the stone circles. Lough Neagh is I'm very fond of because again that's where my brother's home is, and it's another giant story. An Irish giant was fighting the English giant, so he scooped up a sod of earth from the center of Northern Ireland and he threw it at the English giant, but it landed in the Irish Sea, and where it landed became the Isle of Man, and where he scooped it up, filled up with water, and it became Lough Neagh. So you can see why giants are important to our history. Some Gaelic I want you to take with you, very important. The word Mna, M-N-A, is women, and the word for men is fear, F-I-R. So when you go to the bathrooms in Ireland and you see M-N-A on the door, please do not think that it's men. That is women. And look for fear if you're a man. Toilets are called litres. Sláinte is what you say in the pub when you're toasting with your Guinness. Míle fáilte, 1,000 welcomes. Erin go bragh, Ireland forever. And if someone offers you some crack, don't worry about it. What they're actually offering you is some fun. So, few tips about Dublin Airport. I think it's really important. It's not the best organized airport in the world. Prepare for long, chaotic lines. We haven't learned how to do the Disney lining up for anything. It's great for last minute shopping, particularly souvenirs. I always buy my Irish rugby shirts there. They're much cheaper than in the shops in Dublin. Also, Guinness items and any food items that you will be, but there aren't too many food items that you're allowed to take. US immigration is at the airport, so you will be welcomed home before you even leave the country. If you get into a very long line and it looks like you're going to be late for your flight, don't worry. People come down the line every now and then and will give priority to the next flight that's coming in. But it's a great idea that you can go through immigration in Dublin, but it's a very slow process. Be sure to leave time for a full Irish breakfast before you leave. There's several good places, but they don't open until 7 a.m. Be sure to get an Irish Times. It's my favorite newspaper in the world, and it will take you at least a week to read it. So I'm going to leave you with an Irish blessing. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face and the rains fall soft upon your fields. Thank you so much for listening to me. And I hope that Kate's got some questions.
Yes, definitely. There's definitely some few questions that have come through during the talk. But first, for those who've never been to Ireland and that are not familiar with what a full Irish breakfast is, will you just describe what that is?
Yes, yes. Full Irish breakfast is bacon, egg, sausage, baked beans. Irish, you have to have Irish potato bread with it. Some people will offer you fried bread, which is Irish soda bread that's been fried in the bacon fat, and that's pretty good. Sometimes you'll be offered tomatoes and mushrooms, which are also
Mm.
really good to have. The controversial piece is probably the black pudding. The black pudding, of course, is basically blood congealed. It, what they tend to do is put a lot of oatmeal in it to soak it up. I don't like it that way. I don't like it with oatmeal in it. I prefer just the congealed blood, which is very liverish and absolutely delicious. But yeah, it's great. And our bacon is so good because we use the piece of the pig that in this country use for chops, for loin chops. We use that for bacon. We do belly
Oh.
bacon is not popular. So you will get proper bacon when you're in Ireland.
Proper bacon. Yes. And then
Proper
you
bacon.
gave me another great suggestion while we're talking about
Mhm.
food was if you've never tried a
Oh
Guinness,
yes, yes,
yes. Do you want to
yes.
give
If
them the
sure,
suggestion?
if you have never tried a Guinness, please try one before you go. Because the worst thing that you can do is to accept a Guinness from someone in a pub or order a Guinness, taste it, and then say, yuck, and I don't want to drink it, and put it back on the counter or whatever. People will see you. You've probably heard, I hate to say it, but you've probably heard the term ugly American.
Hmm.
And, that will not go down well. Irish coffee, definitely have an Irish coffee. Um, they're, I think they're wonderful. I'm not a Guinness
Yeah.
fan, but I love Irish coffee. But if you can have those things, try them, before you go. And then if someone offers you a Guinness and you don't like it, it's better to say, no, thank you. I'll just perhaps have a harp. A harp is a beautiful Irish lager that is made by Guinness, and it won't seem quite so rude as taking it and not drinking it.
So is it just an American thing where you have half harp and half Guinness, or is that an
No,
Irish thing too?
yes,
Okay.
absolutely. And the other combinations, you can have champagne and Guinness, and that's called a black velvet. And actually, wish I'd prepared for this, but there are several combinations: Guinness and lager, Guinness and whiskey, Guinness and champagne. They're all really popular combinations. Mhm.
Guinness is a food group in all of itself.
When I had my children in the hospital, they give mothers a glass of Guinness every night. It's considered in the hospital Yeah, they consider it a power drink
Wow,
for mothers.
that's great. So some of the questions that have come in, is it possible to cover that RN Islands in a day?
Oh, easily, easily. Maybe not all three. I typically go to Inishir. I like Inishir because it's very small. It's and you get the feel of the island. It has several beautiful little shops where you can buy Aran sweaters and some tweed, and uh, and you can ride around in a horse and cart, or you can rent a bicycle. So the big islands are further away. There's more to see, but I I would say I've easily gone to the Cliffs of Moher and then gone to Inisheer and then come back and gone to see. There's a farm near the Cliffs of Moher that has sheepdog,
Oh
and
yeah,
you can go and watch the sheepdog rounding up the sheep. And I've managed to do all of that and pull Nebron in one day. So it's get up
nice.
early, but it's worth it. You can pack a lot in.
Yeah. Do you have tips if they're, I've been to Ireland and I know the roads.
Mhm.
So do you have tips if they're driving on their own on those small, narrow Irish roads?
Avoid, I was going to say avoid the tourist buses, but some of you are going to be on tourist buses. I won't tell you what the Irish say when they encounter a tourist bus on an Irish road. We don't like them. We understand that they're a necessity to our economy, but yes, they are very, very narrow roads. And always watch if you're driving yourself. There, no matter how narrow the road will be, at least every half mile, not more than a mile, you will see a pull in. And if you can anticipate that there is a car coming, stop in the pull in. But you will also find that the Irish are actually, I've never heard of road rage in
Mm,
Ireland. I find people in Ireland very patient and very understanding about driving. You'll get the occasional person who will say, oh, well, that was obviously an American doing that. But um, the other tip I would give you is if you're in a parking lot, that's the time when you will forget about driving on the right side. So, you know, it's easy to remember to stay on the right side when you've got the white line in the middle. The driver should be on the white line, but you lose all of that when you go into a parking lot. So be more. I have had more issues in parking lots than I have on the road.
that's a good tip. Is it worthwhile to visit the Gap of Dunlop? If I'm pronouncing that right?
The Gap of Dunlow.
Oh, Dunlop. Yeah, Dunlop.
You know, there are again, when I think about that, I think about Glens of Antrim. There are Glendalough, where I showed you where the round towers are. There, and actually, I think you go through the gap on the way to. I'll have to look this up, but I'm pretty sure if you're driving out to Glendalough, you'll go through the gap.
Okay, great,
But
great,
I mean, yeah, it's an okay thing to do for sure. Yeah.
great. Should you book a black taxi tour in advance?
Yes, you should. Although, having said that, you will find, for example, if you're trying to find one when you're in Belfast, go to any bus stop or any taxi rank, and they will be able to maybe even call someone to give
Oh,
you a
wow.
black taxi tour. You don't have to actually go from the black taxi area.
Okay, good tip. Um, oh, and then Judy wrote in that saying the guards haven't started to guard Molly yet.
Oh, they haven't. Okay. Well, you probably noticed in the picture what I was referring to.
Yes.
Um, I
But
just
there
thought it
was
was delightful that they want to protect her,
yeah. They are trying to figure out ways to get people to not um
not
touch
touch
poor
her,
Molly. Yeah.
not touch her, Molly.
So I guess that's one we'll have to stick to the news and figure out what they end up doing. What someone wanted to know the names of the castles listed in one of the photos. I should have caught right.
Oh, Bunratty.
Bunratty. Okay.
Bunratty. That's the one where the medieval banquet is, which I highly recommend. There's actually another castle. If you can't get in, that's another one you should book in advance. Um, and it's easy to book online. Last year it was €65. There's also one called Napogue, Knappogue. If you can't get into Bunratty, try that one. And they have two medieval feasts a day. Um, again, um, I'm trying to think. Well, of course, the Blarney Castle, where you
Mm.
can go to kiss the stone. The surprising thing about Blarney Castle is it also has spectacular gardens, beautiful walks. It's got a poisonous garden, which is fascinating
Oh,
to me. Everything in the garden is poisonous. So,
wow.
yeah, it's a really interesting option to take a walk through the gardens and see all
Huh.
of that. And then, of course, Ashford Castle. It's actually a hotel. So,
Mm.
but people are very welcome to just come in. They're not going to make a difference between, even if you're not staying there, they'll be very welcoming.
Hmm. One thing you should note about kissing the Blarney Stone, for those that don't know about it, you do have to climb a number of stairs. It's not
Yes.
like a stone on the ground you bend over and kiss. It is a
No.
stone set in the wall of the castle. And do you
Mhm.
want to describe what you actually have to do to kiss
Yeah,
it?
yeah. It's and I should say that, you can probably tell I've kissed it a few times. The last time I kissed it was just after COVID. I took an English friend there and made sure that she got to kiss it. What you do is it's the wall is opposite you and there's a huge drop below it, but you don't lean forward and kiss it. You lie on your back, put your hold on to some bars, and you kiss it upside down. So, but also just after COVID, they were, I don't know if they're still doing it, but they were very, very careful to wipe the stone after you kissed it. So you didn't have to worry about all those germs. And of
Like,
course, there are two very strong gentlemen there who are very willing to hold on to you to make sure
yeah.
that you don't have an accident.
Yeah,
So, but
you
it's
don't.
well worth
It's a long way down.
it's a long way down. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I guess if you did get COVID kissing the Blarney Stone, you'd have a good story.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Um, and then, oh, this is a good question because a lot of people are talking about it lately. Is the UK ETA visa when you go to Northern Ireland? If you what?
Yes, I doubt it's going to be a problem because we used to have, in fact, it was very shocking. We used to have border patrols all along the border during the Troubles. We got rid of all of those after the peace agreement of 2003. And when you drive across the border, you won't even know you've done it. The only way that I know when I'm driving I usually land at Dublin Airport and drive up to my brother's house. And the only reason I know I'm crossing the border is because the signs become
Mm,
miles per hour.
ah,
And, the signs in the south are kilometers per hour.
yeah.
Otherwise, you won't even know you're there. And there's no one who, while you're there, who's going to check your information to see whether you've got a visa or not. It's really only relevant if you're flying into an airport. And I heard that it had been put on hold for some time. My husband and I are going in June to England, and we're getting a lot of mixed messages about whether
Yeah.
it's important or not.
The one, if you're going to England, you do. In flying into Heathrow, you are required to do the UK ETA if you're staying in England. If you're using the
Okay.
airport as a transit airport and just going to a different country, you don't need to do it. But if you're going to be staying in the UK, you do need to do it. That was a great question. Do most pubs have Irish music playing? And then what
Uh,
time does the band usually start? Great
not
question.
frequently not until late. One of my favorite pubs is in Doolin. You will get the ferry. Well, actually, I don't know if your tour is taking your guests from Galway to the Aran Islands or from Doolin to the Irish Islands to the Aran Islands. If you're going through Doolin, there's a terrific pub in Doolin. I think it's called Gallagher's. Fabulous food. The music doesn't start till about 9 o'clock, but most of us are not going to stay out that late. But um, just ask around, especially if you're in Galway. There's a lot of pubs that will have Irish dancing as well as music. In Belfast, there's a fabulous pub in the cathedral area. It's called the Black Horse, and I took my grandson there last year, and they actually put down wooden platforms on the floor so that the Irish dancers could get the full impact of their feet tapping on the floor. And the band was fantastic, and they even had Irish pipes. I love Irish pipes. And they served Irish stew, and it was actually at lunchtime. So you can, just check it out, ask around. People will tell you which pub's doing what at what time. But yeah, you can find some pubs open at lunchtime doing that.
Oh, that's great. That's great. This is a good question, and I love that Anna typed it in. Is if you're not into beer or alcohol in general, are there
Mhm.
some good Irish beverages that you would suggest?
Irish breakfast tea.
Yes,
um,
Irish breakfast
Irish
tea. That's
breakfast
great.
tea. One thing is be careful when if you like lemonade. Lemonade, you will find lemonade as you know it quite difficult to find, and it's also likely to be fizzy.
Mm,
Um, and if you ask for lemonade, you need to define what you're asking for. You might want to say fresh lemonade, so they understand it's fresh fruit, because otherwise you'll get the fizzy stuff. And also, some in the north, we're inclined to call 7 Up lemonade.
mm,
And there's also a form of lemonade that's actually brown.
mm,
And it's a little bit like in Scotland, they have something called iron brew. So we have all kinds of, you'll recognize all the soft drinks that we have, but we're a culture that really is very focused on alcohol, I'm afraid. I was raised when most children in Ireland um, go to pubs with their parents, and that's acceptable. And so it's actually legal if you're with your parents to drink at 14. And so what my parents would do is they would allow me to have a shandy, which
mm,
is, about this much beer, and the rest
mhm.
is what we call lemonade, but um, uh, it's actually 7 Up.
Oh, that's great. Good. Back to the alcohol question. And they were wondering if there's a good Irish whiskey distillery that you would recommend.
Oh, yes. Well, I love Jameson's. When my husband and I travel to um, travel to Dublin, we stay at the home of the Jamesons.
Mm,
It's a hotel with a golf course. My husband's a fanatical golfer, and it's right on the Irish Sea. It's 15 minutes from the airport, so when we're tired, we
wow.
can just crash there. It's a fabulous place, and if you stay there, they will give you a free ticket to the distillery, to a tour of the distillery, which is a wonderful tour. And they have terrific tastings at the distillery. It's just about 2 or 3 blocks from the River Liffey. The Liffey goes through Dublin, and it's a few blocks on the north side of the Liffey, quite near O'Connell Street. It's very easy to find. And yeah, the Jameson's Whiskey Distillery. If you're up in the north, you have to go to Bushmills.
Yeah.
Bushmills is on the coast, very close to the Giant's Causeway and Carrick-a-Reed Bridge, and a beautiful, beautiful area. And there's some really nice restaurants. It's a village. Bushmills is a village, and Bushmills Whiskey Distillery is another lovely one to try.
When I was in Ireland, I learned a tidbit about whiskey. In Ireland, whiskey is spelled with an E, But in
Mm,
Scotland, whiskey is not. It's spelled just with
why?
the Y. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's really true. And one of the strange things, I learned this from a lady in Portland.
Mm,
She told me that Jameson's whiskey is what, if you want to become a whiskey, if you want to become a whiskey drinker, women should start with Jameson's. She thought it was Jameson's was a whiskey that women enjoy.
huh.
Personally, I've never really understood the difference. I only like whiskey and Irish coffee. I love Irish coffee with whiskey, and do you know when you get your Irish whiskey in Ireland, you will not get cream out of a spray can.
A
You,
whipped cream. Yeah.
whipped cream, because we have something that I have not been able to find the same consistency in this country. We have something we call it double cream. It's very
Mm,
simply called double cream, and it's thick and it's yellow. It's not too different from clotted cream, which you get in England, and that's what we float on the top of our
mm.
Irish coffee. If you're given a coffee where the cream has sunk and it looks like a latte, feel completely free to say, no, I'm sorry, this is not a good Irish coffee. Please give me one where the cream is floating on the top, and they'll accept your criticism and give you a better one.
Well, good tip. Good tip. The question about a good walking tour around, and there are specific places in Ireland that, or even a good operator for some walking
Mhm.
tours.
I don't know too many operators because I walk by myself or with my family. There's a great walking opportunity right now that has just opened up. It's called the the Dobbins, and it's in that area, which is very it's another one of those best kept secrets like Poulnabrán used to be. But it's the Glens of Antrim and it's the Antrim coast. And there is a wonderful tour that, if you look it up online, it's called the Dobbins, and they you actually have to wear a hard hat
Mm.
because what they've done is they've constructed a walk around the cliffs, and so there can be falling rock and so on. So, but it's a very spectacular walk. You will just see, for example, at Poulnabrán, there's an opportunity for a much longer hike than just going to see Poulnabrán. Yeah, there's everywhere. And don't be afraid to walk through fields. Make sure there isn't a bull in one. But farmers are very welcoming if you want to walk through their fields.
Really?
Yes, they're fine. Much better
Wow.
than the English. The English are a little bit stuffy about walking through their fields.
Huh. That's really
Yeah.
great.
And you'll often
Um,
see a well-worn path that people have already created. But another place in Northern Ireland. I'm not so familiar with walking tours in the south of Ireland, but in the north there's an area called Tullymore Park Forest, and it's on the east side, south of Belfast. And again, if you look it up online, you'll be able to find guide tours, walking tours and hikes.
was that Kelly Moore? Is that what you said?
Tullymore, sorry,
Kelly Moore.
Tullymore. But I highly recommend because again, it's almost undiscovered. Is the Glens of Antrim.
Great.
I'd really love to encourage people to go there. Um, I would suggest the Sperrins, which is in Tyrone. Also very not very well known because it was, if you've heard the stories about the disappeared during the troubles, the people who disappeared often disappeared in the Sperrins, and so for a long time none of us would go anywhere near
Oh,
the Sperrins, but it's being opened up now as an area for walking tours.
no, that's good to know. And then we'll have one last question here because we are at 6:30. We're
Okay.
wondering about the Trinity Library. Is it
Oh,
worth a visit? I
it
think that's a
is
yes.
absolutely. It's one of those things. I don't know how to say this. It's you've just got to really look at the detail. You can walk in and be absolutely overwhelmed by how spectacular it is. Those shelves and the old books. There's so much more to see. In the down the middle of the aisle, they will have cases full of. Last time I was there, it was political cartoons.
Mm.
They had Hogarth cartoons. They had on the walls. Just look at the names of authors. So don't just walk into the library and go zoom to the Book of Kells. Spend some time looking at the detail in the library because it really is beautiful. It's I don't I've been in quite a few libraries in the world, and it's still I keep using the word magical because it really is magical. And when you think about another favorite place, if you're a book lover, favorite place of mine is a coffee shop on Grafton Street. It's called Bewley's Tea House. It's actually turned into a Starbucks, but that's okay.
No.
But it was the coffee shop where George Bernard Shaw used to hang out, W.B. Yeats, all the really
Mm.
famous Irish writers used to congregate there for coffee. It's been around for hundreds of years. And at lunchtime, this is a little tip, at lunchtime, they have a one-act play up in there's a room at the top of the building. You
Huh.
pay, it used to be €5, and you got a bowl of soup and a piece of wheaten bread, and you sat and ate your soup with your wheaten bread, and you watched a one-act play. So
Wow.
it really is a fabulous place. I just love to go in there and have a coffee and think about George Bernard Shaw and T.S. Eliot. You know, I think Americans claim T.S. Eliot, but we claim him too. And
That's
and
great.
if you're really into the theater, if you have time, try to go to the Abbey Theater. That was the theater that W.B. Yeats created. It's unfortunately, it's not the original theater. It's a fairly modern theater now. But the other spectacular one is the Gate Theatre at the top of O'Connell Street. And I love to go there because I mentioned Countess Markovich, who demanded that they shot her. Well, when she finally died, she had such a spectacular funeral that they held it in the Gate Theatre. So
Oh,
when I
wow.
go in there, I channel her. The last time I was in the Gate Theatre was to see a fabulous play I'm sure you've all heard of called Dancing at Lunasa.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really beautiful play and written by Brian Friel. And Brian Friel grew up in the town I grew up in. So
Oh.
I'm very proud of Brian Friel.
Oh, great. Okay, well, okay, I lied. There's one last question. The
Okay.
last question was, how many days do you recommend to cover and to tour Ireland and Northern Ireland? And I feel like you need a year.
I, I, I'm very prejudiced. I mean, I think you need 4 or 5 days in Dublin alone and Dublin and its surroundings. And I mean, I would rather that people went to Ireland if they only have a week, then just do Dublin and the surrounding area. Don't try to do everything. They now have a very good train from Dublin to Belfast, so you could do Dublin and Belfast. All I say is don't try to do it in a week. You're just going to skim the surface, and there is so much. There's so much depth. I'm sure a French person would say the same, and an Italian would say the same. You know, their countries are so full of history. But a minimum 3 weeks if you
Okay.
really want to do it. But
Yeah.
obviously, I go for a month.
Yeah, so you're usually gone for about a month. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for joining
You
us
are very
tonight.
welcome.
It's
And
been
I'm
great.
very open to people getting in touch with me if they have any other questions.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, so if you have any questions, just send them my way and I'll get them to Elizabeth and then we will get your questions answered. So thank you all for joining us tonight. And this will be it for our travel talk. Have a lovely evening. Goodbye.